The news changes every day. Our mission does not. World exists to report the facts, to pursue the truth, and to point to the hope that remains no matter the news.
And if that mission is for you, please support World's June Giving Drive today at wng.org/donate. Good morning. Young workers are planning for a future with no Social Security.
I'm basically just assuming that I'm never going to see it.
Also today, President Trump's agreement with Iran. We'll hear from a military analyst who doubts the deal, and from Cal Thomas, who doubts Iran. Later, pushing back on Pride Month. And tradesmen speaking up for the voiceless.
It is our duty to protect the vulnerable.
It's Tuesday, June 16th. This is The World and Everything in It from listener-supported World Radio. I'm Myrna Brown.
And I'm Nick Eicher. Good morning.
Up next, Kent Covington with today's news.
President Trump is touting the new peace deal with Iran, expected to be formalized this week. He spoke Monday from France to world leaders gathered for the G7 summit, saying the Strait of Hormuz will soon be once again fully open for business.
The strait is already partially opened. As you know, they're doing a little hunting for a couple of mines that they've already found. But it's essentially ships are starting to go out now. On Friday, it'll be completely opened.
The strait is a critical artery for the world's oil supply, and news of the Iran deal sent energy prices plummeting yesterday. French President Emmanuel Macron also celebrated the news.
I think yesterday was signed a very important agreement, a peace deal with Iran. And it's a very important one because first it will fix the nuclear issue. And it's a very important matter for peace.
Trump said he has found the new leaders in Iran to be more reasonable than the previous regime. Questions, though, remain about what exactly Iran has agreed or will agree to with regard to curbing its nuclear program. And Israel appears to have its concerns about that.
עם הסכם, בלי הסכם, לאיראן לא יהיה נשק גרעיני.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that with or without this agreement, Iran will not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon as long as he's in office. He said the peace deal was President Trump's decision, but that Israel would see to its own interests. And the agreement is drawing mixed reactions from Israelis. Kobi Matzah lives in Jerusalem.
I think this is the worst agreement ever. Great damage to Israel and to the world. A big, big damage. Trump caused us a very massive damage with this agreement. He should have continued with the war, put down the regime, let the people there in Iran live in a somehow democratic country.
But Aviv Tatarsky calls it a great relief and says agreements are the best way to solve the conflict.
So I hope it is a lesson also for Israeli citizens that military force mainly creates problems.
Iran has said that for the interim deal to move forward, Israel must halt its attacks on the Iran-backed terror group Hezbollah in Lebanon. But Defense Minister Israel Katz on Monday said that Israel plans to stay indefinitely in the lands it holds in Lebanon, as well as Syria and the Gaza Strip. And in Washington, reaction to the deal is predictably split, for the most part, down party lines. GOP Senator Roger Marshall says the deal is great news for Americans.
No more nuclear weapons for Iran, and then, of course, from the prosperity standpoint, bringing the price of gasoline down.
But many Republicans are also asking for more information about the agreement. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says he does not yet know enough about it to judge the deal. Democrats, meantime, are voicing skepticism. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
We've been told dozens of times that this war is over, and dozens of times we have been disappointed. There have been divergent statements from a variety of people in the administration.
Both sides signed a preliminary agreement electronically on Sunday. They're expected to put ink to paper in Switzerland on Friday. A B-52 bomber crashed and burst into flames just after takeoff at a California air base on Monday. All 8 people aboard were killed. The Air Force says they were a mix of troops, civilians, and contractors, including 2 Boeing employees. The bomber was on a routine test flight for a new radar system at Edwards Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert. Investigators are combing through clues. It could take months to officially determine the cause of the crash. In eastern Congo, an Ebola outbreak is spreading faster than health officials can track it. World's Kristen Flavin has that story.
Congo's health ministry says the virus has infected nearly 800 people and killed nearly 200 over the span of just 1 month. It's caused by a rare strain called Bundibugyo, and unlike the more common form of Ebola, this one has no approved vaccine or treatment. Nearly 1 million people have been displaced by years of war in the region, making it nearly impossible to find those exposed. Doctors Without Borders says the outbreak is outpacing the response. Treatment centers in the hardest-hit areas are overwhelmed. The virus has already crossed into neighboring Uganda, and the World Health Organization has declared a global emergency, warning this could become the deadliest Ebola outbreak ever recorded. For World, I'm Kristen Flavin.
Some of America's most powerful artificial intelligence is still switched off today, and the company behind it is in Washington this week fighting to get it turned back on. Anthropic is the company behind the popular Claude AI engines. It took its newest model, Fable 5, offline after a federal order barred foreign access over fears that it could supercharge cyber attacks. Fable, the most powerful publicly available AI yet, had just gone live hours earlier. The government issued the order after Amazon, Anthropic's biggest investor, warned officials that its researchers were able to defeat Fable 5's safeguards, meaning that perhaps the bad guys could as well. Anthropic is working to address the concerns and restore access. I'm Kent Covington, and coming up, young workers are planning for a future without Social Security, and later pushing back on Pride Month. This is The World and Everything in It.
It's Tuesday, the 16th of June. Glad to have you along for today's edition of The World and Everything in It. Good morning. I'm Nick Eicher.
And I'm Myrna Brown. Up first, a path to peace. President Trump electronically signed an agreement with Iran's lead negotiator, the Speaker of Parliament. The president saying the details will not be made public until after Friday, the day he said the Strait of Hormuz will reopen safely.
So then with that comes a 60-day process toward a broader settlement, but many of the main disputes seem a long way from resolution. The nuclear program, sanctions relief, and whether Lebanon is included. Joining us now is retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Mike Nelson. He's now Chief of Staff for the University of Pennsylvania's Washington office. He previously served in the Middle East with U.S. Special Forces. Mike, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for being here. Mike, I'll note just a few hours after news of the deal came out, Brent crude fell from almost 110 a barrel to below 80. So there must be something, but we just don't have the precise details. So what is your best read here, and how would you characterize what's been accomplished, if anything?
Well, there's a split between what we know and what we don't yet know that apparently we'll find out sometime on or after Friday when the deal is beyond electronically signed, but physically signed, I guess, by the participants who are going to be there in Europe. What we know and what we heard the vice president say on Good Morning America on Monday are the accomplishments of this agreement are, number one, a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. And then the second thing is a promise that Iran will never pursue a nuclear weapon. That second part seems, at least right now, what we have, no different from the language that was in the JCPOA agreed to in 2015. We also don't know what the final agreement on that nuclear program is going to be, which likely will be something less than the maximalist terms that we expressed at the beginning of the conflict. So all said and done, this seems very much like a advantageous agreement to the Iranian regime, and one that, at best, puts certain conditions to the same way they were on the 27th of February before we started the conflict, and at worst rewards the Iranians for some of their behavior.
What do you think a verifiable agreement would actually require? Because I know that is a sticking point there, at least politically in the U.S., that this is no better than the JCPOA, but we don't really know that, do we?
We don't yet. But part of the problem is what's unspoken. What we do know is at the end of the 60-day period, the president claims that he will either return to military action or snap back some of the sanctions. So whatever gets negotiated at the end is probably going to be something that looks like maybe promises of dilution of the highly enriched uranium on Iranian territory. Maybe that's verifiable. Maybe it's not. But it's going to be something that is probably a rhetorical win for the president, or something he's going to claim is. But in reality, it does nothing to deal with the final problem of Iranian nuclear ambitions.
Mike, one of the biggest points of disagreement appears to be Lebanon. Iran insisting on an end to fighting there, but Israel doesn't seem on board with that. So what's Israel's role here? I mean, is there a rift with the U.S. here?
Well, I think there clearly is a rift in that the Israelis seem somewhat surprised and taken aback by, number one, that there was a settlement for the Memorandum of Understanding, and number two, what's in it. They weren't a party to the negotiations. The president has expressed his frustration with Netanyahu over some of the recent Israeli strikes. And this represents kind of a disconnect between what the White House has said we were trying to achieve with the conflict and what we are allowing, at least in terms of Iranian demands. At the outset, the president said one of the goals was severing the links between Iran and their regional proxies, including Hezbollah. Hezbollah continues to represent a threat to Israel from the ground and the air in the terms of rocket and drone attacks. Israel has responded and has the right to respond to threats to their territorial integrity, and the president seems to be extending a blanket of protection over Hezbollah as part of this final ceasefire agreement that not only does not sever the links between Iran and their proxies, it codifies it. So from that perspective of what we're trying to accomplish, it's not only not accomplishing what we set out to, it's having the reverse effect.
So before the war, the Iranian regime was facing internal pressure and protests. We saw that after the war, many of Iran's leaders were killed. But even with the new faces at the top, it doesn't seem that much has changed in terms of the radical nature of the regime. I mean, I remember the idea advanced that this operation may mean freedom for the Iranian people. Do you think that's closer today than when the war started, or is it just kind of status quo?
Oh, I think it is further away for the Iranian people. I think the Iranian people are in a worse position now than they were at the beginning of the year. Despite what the White House might claim now about what the goals were and whether regime change was in the cards when we started the conflict, the president spoke pretty bombastically about help being on the way, or in his statement on the 28th of February when he announced Epic Fury, saying specifically, the hour of your liberation is at hand to the Iranian people. It's not a far stretch to say that Iranians who did hear that took hope that the United States was going to sponsor and facilitate their goals of democracy and freedom. Now, not only have we not done that, not only have we turned a blind eye to up to 30,000 Iranians who were killed for protesting at the beginning of the year, there is some reporting that the language in this document may contain clauses that say that the United States will not interfere with Iranian domestic issues. So it seems to be giving permission to the Iranians to continue to repress, crack down, execute, and oppress their people. So if I were the Iranian people, I would be, I would consider this a pretty large betrayal in the difference between the president's rhetoric and what we delivered.
Lieutenant Colonel Mike Nelson is a retired Army Special Forces officer who served in the Middle East. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up next on The World and Everything in It, the future of Social Security. Experts now say the fund will be insolvent by the year 2032. That is just 6 years from now, and it moves the deadline for reform ever closer again.
Insolvency would mean a significant reduction in benefits for retirees, but reforms to keep payouts could mean higher contributions for young workers, and most of them say they doubt they'll ever see that money again. World's Lauren Smith has this report.
In the 1980s, the Social Security Administration tried to predict the future.
They did all these projections. We were going to live longer. There's going to be some immigration, some emigration. There's going to be pay increases in the future. And for the most part, they did a wonderful job.
That's Dan Doonan, Executive Director of the National Institute on Retirement Security. He says if contribution rates to the fund had been set just a little higher, there would be a much lower insolvency risk now. Still, he says the problem is fixable.
And we should expect to once in a while have to come back and sort of tune up or fine-tune the finances of Social Security. And we've known for a while this is needed, but we haven't seen action.
Last week, the Social Security Board of Trustees announced the fund will be depleted sooner than expected. If revenues don't go up by 2032, benefit checks paid to retirees and survivors will be cut by about 20%.
I think the country would be pretty outraged if we failed to do something by then. And I think there'd be a ton of pressure.
But for many young workers, all the hubbub over Social Security just feels like old news. 29-year-old Turner Karotzer has seen this coming for years.
To me, it's just kind of, it's like, oh, another headline, Social Security is going away. It's like, yeah, I'm tracking. That's why I'm not like putting my hopes into it.
Karotzer is a Marine Corps veteran. He's been saving for retirement since he was 18, and he's doing it under the assumption that Social Security won't be part of his plan.
Every single time I see my paycheck, I see the deductions made for Social Security, and that it is annoying because it's money that you're never going to see.
Young Americans like Karotzer are widely skeptical of federal retirement benefits. About 3/4 say they don't trust the system to pay out, even though it hasn't missed a payment in nearly a century.
They don't care about you. They can't care about you because they don't know who you are. And it's like, it's not a fault of them, them being malicious or something. It's just like, as a limited human being, like they just don't have the capacity to care about everybody on the rolls.
Retirement expert Dan Doonan says these doubts are normal. Younger generations have always been skeptical of retirement benefits that seem far removed.
In the 80s, younger workers were more pessimistic. And then as they got older, they got more confident. You start seeing the checks and you're like, oh, this thing actually works, right? So I think some of that's a healthy, youthful skepticism.
Doonan admits it could be a tough proposition getting voters to accept the higher Social Security taxes that can save the system. But polling shows retiring later and getting fewer benefits is an even harder sell. Now that the trade-offs are clear, Doonan believes political action is viable.
So the clock is getting shorter, and we're now electing people that will be in office when this has to be addressed. There's no benefit in waiting to the last minute.
Doonan says even in the worst-case scenario, future retirees should expect to receive at least 80% of the promised benefits. And with careful adjustments, Social Security could even run a surplus someday.
I think it's easy to be frustrated that we're approaching a point where difficult decisions have to be made. But the reality is, it was done well last time. Inaction has caused frustration, not our inability to solve these kind of problems.
But Karotzer says no budget could win his trust. For him, it's not just about the math. It's about reliance on a system outside his personal responsibility and control.
I think people have a misunderstanding of what freedom is, as long as you can say what you want to say, like that's freedom. But you can also be enslaved monetarily, right? So like if I become reliant on money given to me by the government, they have de facto control over me.
Karotzer's generation is saving earlier and investing more in workplace retirement benefits than past generations. So far, these habits seem to be paying off, and 80% of young workers say they're confident in their retirement plans. For World, I'm Lauren Smith.
Additional support comes from Nuggets of Wisdom, digital homeschool curriculum, unit studies, and educational resources for growing minds. nuggets-of-wisdom.com. From Ascend by Unbound, a real-world faith-centered college alternative for gap year, trades, and degree-seeking students. More at beunbound.us/world. And from Asbury University, committed to the formation of students through discipleship, calling, and career preparation. asbury.edu.
Up next, Pride Month gets some new names. Well, we're about halfway through June. In some places, that's marked with rainbow flags and parades. But this year, some states are taking a different approach.
And back here in Indiana, Governor Mike Braun is declaring June, which is Pride Month, Nuclear Family Month.
Governor Cox officially declaring June Fidelity Month here in Utah, saying
today Governor Sarah Sanders proclaimed June 2026 as Fidelity Month in Arkansas.
It was President Bill Clinton who first introduced Pride Month back in 1999. But on both state and corporate levels, support for one of the 7 deadly sins is waning, and alternatives are popping up. One of them is Fidelity Month.
Fidelity Month is all about rededicating ourselves to those fundamental values that once bound us together.
In 2023, Witherspoon Institute legal scholar Robert George saw a report that the value Americans place on things like loyalty to God, family, and country was in decline.
For almost all of our history, really until very recently, what bound Americans together, despite our many differences, united us, what provided our sources of unity and strength, were shared beliefs, shared commitment, shared values.
He says Americans cannot rely on culture, ethnicity, or religion to bind them together.
It's got to be other things, like the belief in our constitutional republic and in our democratic form of government, like the belief in the importance of God and of marriage and of patriotism.
Hispanic, Black, and white people can agree on the importance of family. Muslims, Jews, and Christians can agree on the importance of God. He says Fidelity Month could be a way to build back those bridges across religious, cultural, ethnic, and racial lines.
Pride Month supporters are critical of any move away from it. The Freedom From Religion Foundation says that Pride Month is necessary for recognizing LGBTQ people. But Congresswoman Mary Miller of Illinois says celebrating the American family promotes children and stable communities. She introduced a resolution in Congress to replace Pride Month with Family Month.
And the government isn't the only one changing direction. NPR reports that corporate sponsorships declined for 2026 Pride celebrations in major cities like New York, Salt Lake, and Orlando, among others. The report says organizations are moving away from backing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
Some churches are calling for a change, too. One pastor and his congregation in Raleigh, North Carolina, are reclaiming the month of June and the rainbow symbol by proclaiming what they call Jesus Pride.
The reason people are so moved and confused about this is so many churches and pastors have decided to give up on God's rainbow.
On top of that, March for Life President Jenny Bradley Lichter says that June holds another reason to celebrate.
The month of June is and forever will be really important for the pro-life movement in this country because it is, of course, the month where Roe versus Wade was consigned to the dustbin of history where it has always belonged.
In 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe with a decision in Dobbs v. Jackson, a ruling that allowed states to protect unborn lives.
4 years ago, which of course was not the end of our work, but was a key sort of pivot point in our work.
In Oklahoma, Governor Kevin Stitt designated June Life Month and called for the state to recognize the inherent human dignity and value of every human life.
No matter what June is called this year or in the future, scholar Robert George says these principles of fidelity apply to everyone.
What's going to bring us as a people closer in line with our fundamental principles? It will be individual people believing in those principles more fervently and acting on those principles with greater determination.
Google is moving from debugging software to debugging the great American outdoors. The company's new project would release sterile male mosquitoes into parts of California and Florida in an effort to reduce populations that spread disease. So what do we call these? Google skeetos, or maybe just go with G-males and spell it G-M-A-L-E. So researchers say the G-males will compete with normal male mosquitoes for mates and gradually shrink the population. To carry it out will require 32 million G-males, and here's hoping they don't get caught in spam filters. It's the world and everything in it.
Today is Tuesday, June 16th. Thank you for turning to World Radio to help start your day. Good morning. I'm Myrna Brown.
And I'm Nick Eicher. Coming next on The World and Everything in It, men are starting to take to social media to share their experiences with abortion in hopes of stopping it.
In Australia, men who work as carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and mechanics are called tradies because they work with their hands in the skilled trades. Well, now some tradies are putting their voices to work. World's Lauren Canterbury has the story.
They call themselves Tradies for Babies, and their videos have racked up tens of thousands of views on social media since they started posting last fall.
G'day, my name's Luke. I'm sending this video in to Tradies for Babies.
G'day, legends. It's another Tradie for Babies checking in.
G'day, I'm a Tradie for Babies for sure.
Yeah, mate. About time us blokes start standing up, eh?
It all started back in September when a group of tradesmen attended a pro-life rally in the city of Adelaide. Videos of the men speaking in support of legislative efforts to protect unborn babies went viral. Sean Freeborn is one of them.
I'm Sean. I'm a carpenter. And Trees for Babies right now is run by me and my wife.
When the first videos surfaced, Freeborn's wife Simone was making social media content for a pro-life organization called Birdflip. Freeborn made a few videos of himself for that platform, and again, the content drew widespread interest.
It's something within the everyday man or like the tradesman on the blue collar, like someone that's like simple in nature standing against evil, like really has taken off.
Birdflip's founder formalized the brand Tradies for Babies and put the Freeborns in charge of it. Like many of the men who have joined the online community, Freeborn and his wife came to the pro-life movement after their own experience with abortion.
We had an abortion when we were younger, when we were 17. Now we have a purpose to use the abortion that we had because it devastates us, every day.
Other tradies around Australia began sending in their own videos talking about their experiences with abortion, miscarriage, and learning the truth that life begins at conception. Australia has very few legal protections for unborn babies. Women can request an abortion for any reason up to 20 to 24 weeks of pregnancy, depending on the state. But even after that, abortionists can still kill unborn babies if two doctors agree.
One of the things that we're exposing in Australia is that Australia does allow abortion up to birth, but most people would say that it's always a woman's choice until you actually then start probing people, when do you think abortion should not happen?
Tradies for Babies is currently backing 2 state-level proposals to protect the unborn. One would protect babies after 26 weeks of pregnancy. Another would protect them from being killed because of their sex. For years, Freeborn says men have been told that the best thing they can do when their girlfriend or wife becomes pregnant unexpectedly is to accept whatever decision she makes.
That's like the worst thing you can say to that woman, because, it puts all of the burden on her. We really need to teach men how to support women in those situations.
The pro-life movement has done well to promote the voices of women affected by abortion, but Freeborn says male voices have been missing. That can also leave men alone while they try to process the loss of their own children to abortion.
A lot of the time, obviously, the woman is the one that we see would grieve the abortion, but now we're giving men also a voice of being able to say that the abortion that they had years ago is actually devastating.
Freeborn envisions the group expanding to providing tangible support for women and couples who choose life. A network of skilled tradesmen would be equipped to meet young families' specific needs. And the movement has already caught on outside Australia.
Tradies for Babies movement, reach Northern Canada, boys.
Hello, I'm Matthew from England.
If the accent doesn't give it away, I am not in Australia. I'm in the U.S., West Virginia to be specific.
Dayton, Ohio, getting on the board. Protect babies because they can't protect themselves.
Freeborn says the movement is a next step in including more people in the conversation around the effects of abortion.
We need to defend the vulnerable, fight for the innocent, and it's our time to stand next to women and fight against this evil.
As the group continues expanding and advocating for pro-life legislation, Freeborn is hopeful that the movement will empower men to embrace their natural roles as protectors. Reporting for World, I'm Lauren Canterbury.
Good morning. This is The World and Everything in It from listener-supported World Radio. I'm Nick Eicher.
And I'm Myrna Brown. Well, as you heard earlier in the program, critics of President Trump's agreement with Iran argue that it gives away more than it gets in return. World commentator Cal Thomas says there's an even deeper problem. Any agreement with Iran ultimately depends on trusting a regime that's untrustworthy.
Iran's rulers have spent decades misleading inspectors, concealing nuclear activities, sponsoring terrorist proxies, and breaking commitments. But my concern goes deeper than Iran's record. It has to do with how Iran's rulers understand negotiation itself. I often bypass the diplomats and experts and turn instead to Yoram Ettinger, a former Israeli diplomat who understands the Iranian mindset as well as anyone I know. Ettinger says Western negotiators and Iran's rulers often enter the same room with entirely different objectives. The Western view of negotiation, he said, is straightforward. Two sides trying to resolve differences and reach a lasting agreement. Iran's rulers see it differently. To them, negotiation is not a path to peace. It's another instrument of conflict. It's a way to buy time, gain advantage, and prepare for the next move. That distinction matters. President Trump appears to believe that economic incentives can change the regime's behavior. After using military force, he's now offering the prospect of prosperity. But Iran's rulers have never suggested that prosperity is their highest priority. This is a regime that has impoverished its own people, sacrificing economic growth in pursuit of ideological and religious goals. Even after suffering military losses, Iran is unlikely to abandon those ambitions. China, Russia, and North Korea have every reason to help rebuild what was damaged because they share a common interest in weakening American influence. And then there's the question of verification. Any new agreement will almost certainly involve inspections and promises regarding Iran's nuclear program. We've seen that movie before. Iran repeatedly misled international inspectors while advancing its nuclear capabilities behind the scenes. Why should this time be any different? The president may secure a diplomatic victory. What remains doubtful is whether he has secured a lasting change in the intentions of the Iranian regime. History suggests otherwise. That is why agreements with Tehran have so often disappointed those who believe they had finally solved the problem. The signatures may change, but the regime stays the same. For World, I'm Cal Thomas.
Tomorrow, Hunter Baker is back for Washington Wednesday, and a competitive speech event challenges students to analyze pop culture through a Christian worldview. That and more tomorrow. I'm Nick Eicher.
And I'm Myrna Brown. The World and Everything in It comes to you from World Radio. World's mission is biblically objective journalism that informs, educates, and inspires. The Bible says, "There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. For the law of the Spirit of life has set you free in Christ Jesus from the law of sin and death." Verses 1 and 2 of Romans chapter 8. Go now in grace and peace.